certainly wasn't enough to justify putting it on there.
Yeah, so you're in a different.
Oh,
And then the fact was a little, good morning, everybody. I can think of very few ways to ruin anybody's morning than to have to look at this face first thing, but here you are. If anybody's trying to talk, am I muted? Seems like it. Hey, Zach, do you have,
Oh,
Zach, do you have the audio on this thing?
Yeah, no, you got it.
Does anybody have the audio on this thing?
Keep trying to do it there.
Yeah, you're due. You should just give up now.
Great advice.
Yeah.
I was not ready.
It's down this. Somebody do a thumbs up if they can hear me.
Then just hit tab. It's not.
Okay. And somebody try talking because I don't think we've got any audio.
We can hear you.
What to do? Yeah, I definitely don't have audio. Exactly.
The VS Code has the one that's in the documents.
Yeah.
Open. You want to switch to the one that's just in projects in VS Code?
Okay, try talking again.
Then you'll do CD.
Testing. Testing 1, 2, 3.
Excellent.
Same thing, it's not-
Thank you, Caitlin. You're my new favorite person.
For now, until
For now,
I,
yeah.
until I say something else.
It's funny how that works with me, isn't it? Why aren't you here today? You're usually like sitting here, aren't you?
Yeah, I am. I'm on child duty today, so
Yeah, that
yeah.
happens. I had 4 of them. Thankfully, most of them are independent at this point.
Yeah,
'Cause
it's my sister, but yeah.
Sweet. Navigate someplace that's real. What?
I don't know if you can do that with Get Back. You might be able to, you could close the windows, try typing it down, see if it might work, but.
Okay, I'm gonna have to kind of do like this because I'm gonna have to see what I'm typing. Or maybe unifying the outputs will work better.
But if you put something over in. Yeah, that was. Yeah, I was like, I haven't had that over in a while, but I think it's not gonna be over the trend. Oh, I really love that. Like, oh, I never. That's now. Like, yeah. Maybe we gotta go every one of those songs. I heard about that, I just got. Yeah. But that's.
Okay. So we're gonna play in full screen mode all day. Look at All right, let's go ahead and get started. We've got a lot of stuff today, and I want to make sure that there's plenty of time at the end to work through anything you guys want, answer questions, let you guys work on some of this stuff with us around so that, you know, like I can help you. Let's be realistic, so Zach and the other guys can help you. But regardless of which, so I kind of want to go ahead and get started. And I need to share screens if I can. Zoom. There we go. Let's move this over to desktop too, so I can see stuff. Working on it right now. All right, I can only, because of the difference in screen size between my desktop and this, the aspect ratio, I can only see this window. So the part that people online are seeing, that's great. If there's random stuff in the background or there's pictures of my naked children taking baths at, you know, age 1, then I'm sorry, it's just the way it is. Yeah, so first thing I need to ask is, how far along is everybody on their spreadsheet application? Has anyone finished it? Excellent. That's great to hear. But that's awesome. How many people are stuck at something right now? So you just haven't been doing it? Yeah. Excellent. All righty. That's great. Too busy gaming. Yes. All right. So this is my profile up there. As you can see, in the last 4 weeks, as I've been trying to start a company and simultaneously teaching this class, I've got a lot of green dots. If I have more green dots than you, there's a problem. Because my primary job is not writing code, which means that if you want to be a code writer, the guy who's old and retired and doesn't know how to do this shit is doing a better job than you are at it. Okay. So get your activity, your profile and stuff up there. Also, if you haven't done so already, go ahead and follow Zach and I and the other instructors and stuff like this on GitHub. We can follow you back, and that way you can get some community traffic and things like that. It'll also let me spy on you and find out how badly you are actually getting your shit done, and then I can give you random calls and annoy you about it. So, which is, you know, my definition of love on this stuff. All righty. So for class today, we have a couple different things. I'm going to We're going to talk about, it's class 6, actually, so let's go up to class 6. We're going to talk about, kind of review sync and async again, okay? Then we're going to create a project from scratch with NPM, because I'm going to show you how to use NPM scripts and some of the tooling inside of that. Mostly because you're going to see all this stuff in the future. A couple new modules, and then we're going to create 2 projects today, and I'll let you guys work on whichever ones you want. You can kind of pick it, but basically we'll do a to-do list on the command line, and we'll just start it. I'll give you the tooling and kind of the setup for it, and then the same thing on a website on the web if you want to do a to-do list on the web, right? So you can kind of see both. It's important that by say Wednesday that you have some together, because I need this setup in place to start doing some of the testing demonstrations I want to show. So we're going to try to talk about testing next Wednesday. If you don't have freaking code in place, it's going to be very, very difficult to do that, right? So please, please try to have some of that stuff in place. Also, I'm just giving you guys kind of the outline of this. The best thing you possibly can do is try to build out all the functionality and features and everything else that you want to just make it as complete as possible. And doing it on your own, because you're going to fail miserably. And the more you fail, the more you have to figure out the right way to do it, the better you're going to get. And that's just, there isn't any way around that. You just have to spend as much time as possible behind the keyboard, type the stuff out, figure out why it's not working. But with the basic to-do list app, you've obviously got displays, you've got queries, you've got to update a list on that. You've got to be able to show that. If you're doing like the command line version, you're looking at possibly saving that file and then opening it back up. So that you can maintain state between when you run the application, right? And then on the same things on the website, you're looking at being able to be able to refresh the screen and show it and all that kind of stuff. So think about all the things that we've done so far and all of the capabilities you can put in that and how you can demonstrate that and that kind of stuff. And so we'll just get it started, and then the remaining time in class, you can work on your spreadsheet, or you can work on your to-do list, or you can work on anything else that you want. Any questions? All right, whoever looks like they're paying attention to me the least. Yes, excellent. What's the difference between sync and async? We talked about it Wednesday, yeah. Nothing. Excellent. Somebody? You're looking down.
No, I'm trying to think like is it?
Excellent. This is how you get everyone looking at you. Is they're like afraid to look away? Like, yeah. Anybody online? Do you remember the difference between sync and async? Yes. You guys are not giving me a lot of hope on my teaching capabilities. Like everything is gone. That's it. I have absolutely failed miserably. I've just lost my job. Zach's firing me right after this month. So thank you all for screwing me over. I appreciate that. No, async and sync. So applications can either run one command, next command, next command, next command, next command, next command. That's called asynchronous. That means they have to be run in order, right? Synchronous applications can run in parallel. So they'll run this at the same time they're running this, at the same time they're running this, at the same time they're running this. The advantages of running synchronously is that you can do a lot all at the same time. So your performance is better. It scales a lot better, right? If Google can't do indexing and searching synchronously, then it has to go through 42 trillion documents trying to find your thing, right? No, but if it can run in parallel at the same time, then this becomes really important, because a lot of the things that we do with humans have to be asynchronous, right? You can't just run the program in parallel all the time. You can do that when you're talking to computers or interacting with different things. But if you're expecting a user input, it doesn't help a whole lot if the computer keeps running and skips over waiting for you to reply back, right? So whenever, especially with humans and any kind of human input, or anytime that you have to have one thing before you can move on to the next thing, you have to force the code to go into asynchronous mode. And because JavaScript is by nature synchronous, that means we have to force this. There's a couple different ways to do that. We can tell it we can use promises, where we basically say that until you promise that you're done, then I won't execute this next piece of code. You can do this with await calls. You can do this by A lot of the early stuff just put timers in there, so you waited until the thing got back, and if it didn't get back in time, then you had an error. There's all kinds of bad ways to do that. The example I have for the command line tool today actually shows this, and that's part of the reason why I want to talk about it again. You're going to see a lot of this. There's a lot of asynchronous stuff that you have to do to make sure that your code is going to work. And as you get into larger and larger projects, it is honestly the thing that causes me the most headache all the time is trying to figure out, oh crap, this stuff is not happening in the right order. I'm going to have to force this into some kind of asynchronous mode, right? And so honestly, the command line tool that we're doing today is probably the first modern JavaScript application that you guys will see. It's very small, but it looks very, very much like the stuff that we're writing over at Diode, and a lot like the stuff I think that Zach's probably writing over at Apricot and everyone else. So, yeah, congratulations. But let's go ahead and start. How are we going to start? How do we start every one of my classes? Anybody? Let's open a new repo. Yes, everybody. Thank you. I need to move this window. Nope. Repository. We're going to do new. And I'm going to call this repo what we'll call command line to do. Okay. Let's go ahead and give it a README so I don't have to do that. And we haven't done this because I've been trying to be very thoughtful about not actually doing too much as far as trying to automate some of this stuff so that you know what's going on. But if you notice, there's this get ignore. Remember how we tell it to ignore that node modules directory? Well, we can just say node, and it will create a get ignore file that automatically ignores that stuff for you with your README. So we don't have to do the echo get ignore star, then redirect that to a get ignore file, right? So we'll go ahead and do that for ourselves. Excellent. A repository? I would create a new one, and I'll show you how to delete one later because it's not easy. GitHub does not want you to delete repositories, so you have to type in the name and special form and the settings thing. But the big red button that warns you that the end of the world may come and it can fire nuclear missiles. It's just kind of a pain. Thankfully, it's easy to rename. It just breaks everything once you kind of connect it in. Oh, also, we'll get into some automation and stuff next week if you guys get far enough along, so we can show you how to run automated tests directly from the work you've done. All right, so code, SSH, going to copy this. I feel like I should just be able to tell you to do this, and you should already be able to do it. But let's go ahead and in my playground, yes. Oh my gosh, I'm going to have to hide this. Hey, that's a good place to hide it. All right, what do I type here? Oh my gosh, everybody go grab
Git
some
clone.
coffee. Let's go. Yes, come on, git clone, yes. Git clone. And then we're going to cd into command line to do. All right, everybody here? Who's not here? Dear God, really? Seriously? I am calling on you for everything now. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Thank you for identifying that shortcoming to me so I can definitely double down on it. Who is not done yet? You're killing me, Steve. Excellent. Okay. We're going to do something a little bit different today, right? So right now, if we look, we've got a README. If we do an ls-a, you can see we not only have a README, we have our get ignore file. Any file on Unix systems, I don't know if I explicitly mentioned this, on Unix systems, any file that's got a dot, its name begins with a dot, is hidden by default. It's not like really hidden. I mean, they're still there. You access them, everything else like that. But they're mostly configuration files and stuff you don't want to look at. So your setups and all that kind of stuff, you're not going in and editing, your screen size properties all the time. So they just hide them. So when you type in ls, it's usually files you actually want to see. But the -a lets us see all of them. So we can see the .git. That's where Git stores all of the diffs for all of your changes. It stores all your transaction log. It has a complete copy of everything you've ever done. It all gets stored in there. And then our git ignore file. Okay, so far so good? All right, we're gonna do something slightly different today. You may want to watch me on this. Let me move this window out of the way too. Now I've got two windows I can move out of the way. Yay, because I'm having a hard time. We're gonna set up this as an NPM project. So we've been using NPM and it will do some of this stuff for us. But there's best practices that we can use by making sure that we give a name, a description, that we set up a licensing file for it, that we specify repositories, all that kind of stuff that we can do. And NPM will take care of that for us. We're going to find out that NPM does a lot of shit, but regardless of which. So I'm going to write, I do NPM init in the folder of the project. And NPM has this nice little wizard. Can I do that? Yay, NPM has this nice little wizard. And it's going to say, hey, what's the name of this package? And I'm going to say, anything that's in the brackets here is the default. So if you just hit enter, that's what it'll put in for you. So you don't have to think about it as far as the default goes. So I'm going to say package name, yes. Version 1.0, sure. Description, command line to do application with all. Yeah. Entry point. So we're defining the start of our application, what the actual file that begins the whole entire thing. Like, right, we can use lots of different modules and stuff like this, but this is the starting place for the entire application. So we're going to leave it at index.js. Test command. Hey, pretty cool, right? So by default, every project should be doing some testing, right? We should have testing around our application. At the companies that I have worked with and stuff like that, I require basically 90% better coverage on unit testing, 20% of major use cases covered on the EDE tests, and then 100% coverage on all integration tests. So testing is a massive, massive chunk of what we do. In fact, it could be argued that you spend as much time or more writing tests as you do writing new code. And so all applications should have testing. We're not covering testing today, but I don't want to leave this blank. So we're just going to do echo. We really need to add some testing.
How do I get back to you if I hit return? Now I'm at Git repository.
Hit Control C, cancel, and then run the command again. I thought you were telling me why I needed to add to the end of my thing there. Make sure you put the single quotes around it or it will not work. If we run our automated test script now, it's just going to echo out the, hey, we really probably should have some testing. So. Hey, look at that. It's asking us for a Git repository because, your project should have a Git repository. So I'm just going to paste my Git repository in there. Yeah, don't hit enter too soon. Everybody's staring at you, waiting for you to finish. No stress. Okay. Next one, keywords. So if you want it to be searchable on inside of this is generally used around things like if you're creating a module and then you make that module publicly available, people can search on it and that kind of thing. I'm not going to put any keywords in here, so we'll just hit enter. Author is going to be me. And the standard kind of format for this is your name, and then inside the little braces there, your email address. I don't remember what the ISC license is, but it's basically an open source license. And since this is a to-do list and there's only 186,726,437 of them out there, I'm not too worried about keeping it closed. And then it's going to say, hey, this is what your project looks like. Is that all good? And I'm gonna say, yeah. Also, notice it includes the homepage as the README file for your project, which is pretty cool. All right. And now when I type ls, I get a package.json and a README file. So now we have 4 things in here and we haven't even made a project yet. Let's take a look at what that package.json looks like, okay? So code package. All right, so we've seen this package.json. Would you please stop? Go away. Don't show this again. This doesn't happen when I use Vim. Okay, so we've got a couple different things in here. Obviously, we have the name, the version, the description. Name we didn't have before, right? Description, main, scripts, the repo, the author, the license, the bug, the homepage. None of this did we get when we just did the npm install before. So this sets up all of our project information and does it for you so that it makes it easy to kind of get this thing started. Okay. You'll also notice this section here, scripts. So obviously, you've got. There's actually a couple different things when you're talking about when you're working, let's say, once you get a job and you're working in this, you obviously have your code that's doing stuff, right? That's a major piece of the work. You also have the code that's testing things. At least if it's a good shop. If it's a shitty shop, then you just hire a bunch of people in the Philippines to do your application. But if it's a good shop, then you have a bunch of tests around it. The third thing you actually have is tools to work with the code, to make changes to the code to do things. In a lot of ways, the npm is a tool itself, right? It lets us install packages, download them, configure them, it puts them in the file for us so we don't have to remember them later. It lets us set up the repository, but there's generally other tooling that you use, and they're most often kind of just scripts that you write that say, okay, I need to, when I run in dev mode, I need to set up a fake database, I need to populate with fake information that I already know, like usernames, otherwise how am I going to get logged in, all that kind of stuff. And so you write a little script that sets up your database, populates it with temporary data, and then lets you connect to it locally, right? Well, that's just a script that's run every so often. So these are kind of maintenance tools, and most often those are scripts. So we have lots of scripts inside of our JavaScript application stack. Let me show you one real quick. I can do this real quick. Jump, roll text, right? And then we'll do Vim, package that. I have the package.json tag, right? Oh, yeah. Okay, so you can see here I've got like 5 scripts in there, 7 scripts, 6 scripts, something like that. A prepare that ends up running the Husky command that is a tooling for prepping the repository, an analysis build so that we can see the performance on the things. We have a dev environment so I can run not just, so when we run a dev environment, a test production environment. The dev environment is when I'm running on my local machine. The production environment is when we're running live, right? So when we're actually running locally, I don't do npm start or whatever, I run into dev. How to build the package, because we use tools that minify the code, take out a bunch of stuff it into smaller files so that they load faster, all that kind of stuff. So you actually kind of compile the code. The starting for the production environment, how we get that set up. Our linting tests. Linting is a tool that tells you if your format doesn't match up to what the standard format should be, the number of spaces and that kind of thing. And then a test build where we run the actual test software against our suite. So all of our tests that get run, right? So you'll see this kind of thing a lot. Questions before I move on to this part? Okay. Questions? Anything? All right, so let's go ahead and run one of these scripts real quick, because, you know, we put one in there, we put a testing script. And the way you run scripts is npm run, and then the name of the script. So we're going to run test. And it just gives us a nice message back that says, we need some tests. You may also, if you're not sure what scripts you have, you just type npm run. It'll return a list of all of them. So in our Rolotext application, I do npm run, and it gives me a list of scripts that we have that you can run if you're wanting to remember what to do, right? So far, so good. All right, before I do anything else, I'm gonna do git add dash a, git status, git commit. And npm project. It sounds like it should be an instead of a, but I'm gonna go with that. So, and then git push. So that I know you all at least have a dot on Saturday. Right? Yay, I have a dot today. Woo! Okay, sure. Thank you for asking questions. I can't get a freaking conversation out of anybody in here.
Or
Other than me.
did we declare test as the name of that particular function, or did that just pop out when we're typing?
Okay, so it actually, when we were doing, we did the npm init, one of the things was test, and we typed echo, we need to run a test. Because every project should have a test, have tests in it, it always asks that, and so we just put one.
Okay, so it just defaults to tests, like, can we change that script name?
Yes, well, yeah, you can change that script name, you can put in new scripts, just editing that package.json file will do it. So for example, so his question was, this is what npm asked us about test, right? So can we rename this? Sure, if we want to go in here and do Bob is awesome, right? I can do echo Bobby is really awesome. Make sure you type this exactly correct. Bobby is really, it's very important, or it'll break the compiler. So we got that. Also, you'll notice this little red squiggly line. That's because we need a comma at the end of this one, right? And then if we do npm, npm run, we'll see we now have two tests or two scripts, and I can do npm run Bob is awesome. And I'm really awesome. So, there we go. Anything I want. But this basically just, what that does is it actually just runs this, right? So what we did was we told it, and all the npm script does is run whatever you typed on the command line of your Unix terminal, right? One of the reasons why you poor fools who are stuck on Windows get so beaten up is because Windows was designed to be a desktop user interface used by users and everything else like that. Unix was designed to be a programming interface. And so the command line on Unix is a programming environment. If you can write whole entire applications that do nothing except work on the command line and execute things on the command line. It's actually like the node terminal or whatever. It just runs, executes, and does stuff on the command line for you. So you can automate everything on your computer. You can automate anything on the Unix box. Anything you want to do. Well, you can't exactly on Mac because they kind of a hybrid. It's like they've got a Windows environment sitting on top of that. But on my Linux environment, I can automate anything from clicking around on the screen to connecting to a server, downloading these packages, pulling yourself, renaming files, changing images, resizing them, putting filters on top of them, saving them in new files, zipping them up, and then sending them up to another thing. And we can do all that just with the command. So by default, those scripts just literally take whatever's in the script and stick it on the command line and execute. So the echo command is a really easy one because it just does that. And you can see exactly what it sent to the terminal, to the command line right there. So far, so good. All right, so we said that our entry point for this application was going to be index.js, so we probably need to make an index.js file, index.js. And we're going to go ahead and install our first new package of this class. It's a tool for making command line applications, right? It's called prompts. So I'm going to do npm install prompts. And it downloaded it, installed it, and now we will see that we have a bunch of files in there. We have our index, we have our get ignore, our node modules that where it downloaded the package, our package JSON, package lock, because if you've got packages, you need to have a package lock file. And then our README file. So we have no code yet. See, this is my daughter when she was a little baby. Yeah. So far, so good. On get status. Hey, we've modified our package.json. Let's take a look at what the package.json looks like now. Hey, so it has updated again. Notice we now have our new dependency section here. It has prompts, right? So it's identified that this is a new module that is part of this project, and we need that every time we go. So you're not even saying anything. I just told you to figure out ways. This is, I didn't run anything. This is code. Yes, code. It's got our package.json file. I'm just looking at the file. You guys ever see me type vim something? Don't do that. Just move on. I'm trying to use VS Code. I'm trying to be very good. It's hard. It's very, very hard. Yeah. All right. Are we all kind of caught up? Let's give 1 second here. We have time in class because I'm just going to kind of walk through the basics and just kind of get it started. But if you guys look at like you guys look at like for Rolotex, which is the company that I'm trying to help start. If you look in this, you'll see that there's what that package.json looks like besides all the build, tons of dependencies because we use all kinds of modules because it's always better to use a module than write code yourself. Dev dependencies, so set just packages that are required for the dev environment and not for production. Because when you're running in dev, you need things like specialized loggers and test frameworks. You don't put test code up on the production environment, right? All of our licenses, all of that kind of stuff. Which versions of browsers we support, all kinds of stuff. And I'm going to do a git add, git commit. Huh. Well, this is going to be fun for me. And finally, git push. It's actually working. Right? That's good sound. Do we have a whiteboard someplace? There's one somewhere.
It's kind of perfect.
The rolling whiteboard.
I'll say that. I missed that. Wait, is it?
I think it is. It's right there. And it's right behind a locked door. Motherfucker stole a whiteboard. You get better at teaching? Oh, I had a class, I taught a number of college classes, mostly as an adjunct professor in evenings, a couple of weeks. And holy crap, those are the best things for learning stuff. It was, you learn so much more doing this, because not only do you have to know how to do it, but you have to see it broken 8,000 different ways, and then be able to explain that in an easy way. I wouldn't have gotten the job advice and the CPO there, I would have gotten that AI presentation. It was so thinking good. Actually ended up making a list of, hey, if you want to progress in your career, do these things. And there were things like, set up your own website and all this kind of thing. But like the last one on there was, if you really want to be good at something, teach, because it is fantastic. And we have a number of students who come back to teach classes. So, all right, everybody's on the same page, right? We're all good? All right, let's go ahead then. And now that we've got all this running, we've got our testing, we've got our package.json file. It's got all of our stuff in there. It's starting to look pretty decent, actually. We're starting to look like a real honest to goodness application now. Yay. So I'm going to open up that folder, open folder. I've not opened yet a folder. How in the world is this not a thing? Later. Okay. Do I need to go back to the package.json file real quick? Also, because everything now is JSON, which is basically JavaScript, we can read everything in JavaScript. So you do write JavaScript, you read JavaScript, our configs in JavaScript, our API access is all JavaScript. It's all fantastic. So you guys didn't have to read in any files back in the day. Holy crap, Microsoft is evil. So far so good. All right, let's open up our index.js file. All right, so we're going to use prompt to create a command line prompt application that is a to-do list, right? So it's going to ask, hey, what's your next to-do item, right? And you type something in there, and it will say, okay, and then you can see a list of them, and we can add a menu to it, we can save it to a file, we can do all kinds of stuff with it. But we're going to use a library, we're going to use this prompts library for that. And the reason why is for two reasons. First, because prompts runs because it's a command line application that's run as a module embedded in JavaScript. And because it's requiring user input, we have to run asynchronously. We're talking to a user, the application can't run in parallel. So this is going to force us to do async calls and to learn how to do async await calls and things like that. The second is it makes it real pretty in the command line. You guys can put up the documentation. It's pretty simple. It's a pretty straightforward library. So it gets us kind of started with all of that. So the first thing we always need is our const prompts equal require. All right, so before we can use the library, we've got to actually include it. We do that with the require, or we do that with the import. We did it with import last week, and that's what you'll see mostly. But I'm going to go ahead and move with the require on this because I just don't care right at this moment.
Can you zoom in a little bit?
Can I what?
Zoom in.
Dude, it's hard enough for me to see on my screen. What is the zoom in command again?
Control plus.
Oh my gosh, I hate this. I can only see this window. So right now my text is like this big on the screen.
That's like perfect for you, right? It's too easy.
Just hit him with something hard. What did I ever do to you guys? I'm never anything but nice. Okay, yeah, that explains it. All right, so sounds like it's good. It should be great. Let's actually use our prompts command. So I'll do this wrong to begin with so you can kind of see what I mean. But let's do we'll create a main function. So const main is equal to, right? And then we'll do, return prompts. Prompts takes a callback. Remember our higher order functions, right? Actually, let's not. Let's do it instead this way. Okay. Prompts takes a number of arguments. We can specify the type we want. So that it knows what kind of input we're going to give it, and this is just going to be a text value. By the way, the documentation is right here. You guys want to see it? This will be uploaded at the end of class, but this is the library. It's on GitHub. You can use it. It shows you how to install it. It shows you what things are in there, gives you some examples of how to do it, that kind of thing. So value. Oh, nope. All right, I'm used to doing it as JavaScript objects instead of JSON.
You help the rest, like, you're on next one. But the others are already done. Hey, Bob.
Yes.
So, under type and name there, you've got text and value in double quotes, but message has it in single quotes.
Yeah.
Why is that?
Actually, it's a great question. Okay, so he pointed out something that's really good here, and it's a good catch. It's also something I should explain. You can use either double quotes or single quotes for when you're quoting values in a JSON object. The problem is twofold. The first is that the double quotes are what are called soft quoting, which means escape characters and stuff gets carried into it. So if you put like a -n, it creates a new line, right? It doesn't print literally what's in there. It prints what's in there interpreted through whatever the UI is. It's generally bad practice to do because you can get weird side effects. I automatically did on this, and the problem is I've been doing this too long, so I've got a whole bunch of habits from forever ago. So forever ago, the standard was kind of put things in double quotes unless there was a problem that could happen because you did it. And I automatically, without even thinking about it, put this in single quotes because of the question mark. I knew the question mark could cause problems depending on how it was interpreted and what characters I had around it. So I just immediately put single quotes. You should just use single quotes all the time. And in fact, I'm going to go back and fix that because it's best practice to use single quotes unless there's a reason that you think you need it. So thank you. That is entirely a Bob thing. So VS Code has a Vim mode. You can install plugin and it will do give Vim commands, but they're not the same as mine because my Vim configuration is so customized. So that's why it takes me some time to do this because it's like bad Vim that it's trying to put in there. But yeah, that's a really good catch. You should always just use single quotes. Okay, there are times to use double quotes when you actually have to take and interpret what's happening and have it execute on the screen, but there's ways around that, and honestly, you're better off using single quotes. So, good catch. All right, so let's try running this thing. We can do that with node index.js. What's your to-do list? Promise pending. I want to teach a class. And it didn't reply back with, I want to teach a class. In fact, we got this weird thing where it asked us the question we wanted. Okay, that's great. It put this weird promise thing in there automatically for us. Printed the same line again with a question mark in front, like we had somehow answered it. Then I typed in what I wanted to come on the console, and it said nothing came back. Anyone want to guess why this is happening? It's because the prompt command is being run, executed, and finishing before I even have a chance to finish typing. So it's returning the promise of a future job that's going to be done. And I'm not waiting on that promise to finish. So a promise is basically a statement that I'm going to run and I will return this thing, and you just need to wait until this thing is populated before you do anything. Okay? And so it's kind of this thing where you're like, I'm promising I'm going to finish eventually. And you say, okay, I'm going to wait until you finish and not execute my code here. So because of the interactive nature of what we're doing, and because I don't actually stop the screen to get this neat kind of formatting stuff like that, it just kind of goes. I'm not able to interact with this command interface the way I want to, right? So what we've got to do is we've got to change this in such a way so that the program runs asynchronously, right? We like the code runs synchronously. It's better when it runs synchronously. It's faster, it performs better, it scales better. If you can't run synchronously, you cannot possibly do nearly the things you can do on modern computers. Part of the reason why NVIDIA is taking off in the AI space is because NVIDIA, which always worked on gaming machines, which was worried about things like ray tracing and stuff like that. So how the direction that light looked like it was bouncing off things had to run synchronously. It had to be able to process 300 million operations at the same time so that it looked right, so that you weren't waiting all the time. Where Intel processors, technically, well, without getting too much complexity, Intel processors generally run synchronously.
Asynchronously, right?
I'm sorry, asynchronously. Yes, generally run asynchronously. Right? So NVIDIA is making these processors that are hyper designed for games because they need to be able to run like I had a tablet, the NVIDIA tablet one time, I got 2012. It had a 256 core NVIDIA processor. And you could run video games on this tablet. And you couldn't run video games on a work computer because the game video card was for something that was not gaming. It was because it could run synchronously all the time. Right? So there's a lot of really good things about running synchronously. Human interface, when we are waiting on users to do things, is a problem, and it causes a lot of issues. And so we're going to have to force this program to run asynchronously. And so how are we going to go about doing that? Well, the first thing we're going to do is instead of main with that, we're going to do, what do I have on this? That seems weird. Okay, so we're going to take our main function and let's force our function to be asynchronous. So I'm going to do that with the async command. So I have defined a function, in this case main, that we are going to force to run asynchronously. We don't want it to run in parallel. We're going to force it to run asynchronously. Okay, that's great. But the individual things in there don't know that they're supposed to run asynchronously. So we need to tell anything we're doing inside the application space that, hey, we want to wait until the process, any processes that we have are done before we move on to the next thing. And the way we do that is with the await is with the await thing. Also, I am going to end up moving because we'll still have a problem here. So when these things get pulled into our application, if they're not inside this, what I'm wanting to do is actually make effectively main the entire application, other than just where we call it to start it at the bottom. So we're gonna put everything in main, including any new functions that we make and stuff like that. So let's go ahead and take our, well, let's try it with this first, because I would really like to see how well this works. Okay, so there's one last thing I need to do with this particular thing here, okay? And that is, if you make a promise, you're saying something runs asynchronously. The problem is that you can't guarantee that it's necessarily going to finish, right? Let's say that you need to grab a list to do items from the internet. So you've got a server somewhere, right? So you make a request. You guys probably have a hard time hearing me when I'm walking away from the podium. So you make a request and you're trying to get your to-do list through an API call. Let's pretend the internet's broken, right? You don't have an internet connection. Your computer's frozen up and you're standing there doing nothing for the whole class, right? Something like that happens and it's not working. So what happens when it awaits forever, right? It either like freezes the computer, you're stuck and there's nothing happening. Or the better way to handle this is actually to check to see if something broke and then let you know that something broke and you probably need to do something about that, right? But that means that any function that gets called with async, you need to be able to handle the condition in which it doesn't successfully get executed. The await lasts, the async actually lasts forever, or something's broken and it can't actually complete the command, right? So the way we do that is by the functions that get, any function that we define with async, we can add a catch block to it. So we just do catch. And catch automatically gets an error message sent to it. So we can just console log error. Okay. So the three things we've done to make this work is we've defined main as an asynchronous function. We've told our any program space that's running inside of there, any functions that are called inside of there, to await the next step of execution till it's done. And then we've had to put an error catch on. Shaking your head. Somebody, you okay? Yeah. Yes. To make sure that we catch any errors that come back on it. It's not a lot. It becomes a lot really fast. Especially when you start to nest these suckers down, they can get really, really big quick, which is why there's another way to do this called a try-catch block. It basically lets you await sync everything in a block, and then you can just write it and then catch it in one place. But we're not going to get into that because that is actually gets more complicated for smaller use cases. So I'm not entirely sure this is going to run because originally I was planning on moving this into the code base, but we're going to try it since, you know, what the heck. So let's do our node index.js again. And error is not defined. Oh, well, that's good. Oh, sorry, I don't do console log error. We just console the error. Because the console is going to generate the error in this case. That's me, sorry. Still not working. This is still not working. Still broken. Well, dang it. So the code inside of our async is awaiting, but the console log piece is not necessarily. And so what we're going to end up doing is we're going to put, actually, let's see about, how did I go about doing this time? Okay, yeah, let's make this whole thing. So we're going to actually do something slightly different. What I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this return await prompts thing into a function that's asynchronous itself. Okay, so what we'll do is const get next to do is equal to async then we're going to wrap this whole thing. Oh my gosh, freaking bad damn. No, don't need that one. What am I missing? Prompt async. Got that. Good. Okay. Then we'll pull this into here. Now I'm going to keep main outside because then I can keep main as a standalone. But we are going to put our console log in here. And instead, we're going to set a var to do and tell it to await our next to do.
That beat
What is which V?
on top.
That is a mistype that you caught successfully. I was testing you. Good job. You need a semicolon at the end of that? I don't remember. Oh, there's I also have a double async here. Okay. So this way I can tell it to actually await next to do. We don't have a dot next to await. So this way I can say we're going to wait to populate to do with the output of next to do once it finishes. Okay. So we're going to, now that we've got this as an asynchronous function itself, the whole entire main statement is running asynchronously, and I'm going to wait populating this variable until this has finished executing, and then we can console log message that out. Actually, I probably should make that message because otherwise it's going to be really, really confused. Yeah, because we're just going to console log it out. So notice I've wrapped this entire thing now in an async, and then each of my functions inside of my main function are going to be asynchronous as well. And now, assuming I haven't screwed something else up, which is also entirely possible, you never know. That's going to be important. Oh, it didn't print something. Yay! What if they have those quotes? It's not. And we got back an object that has a value because we told it we wanted it to be value. So we can actually just capture message and then message.value anything we want and put that into a list or an array or anything else that we like with them. Does that make sense? So far, so good? No? You're doing great. So this works. What's the next thing I do?
Push.
Git add, git status, git commit, git push. All right. We're just about done with this particular example. From here, you guys should be able to check on a loop, ask for, hey, do you want to continue? Have it ask for another list, put that into array, print the array out. You can use the console colors if you want to make the list of to-dos the way you'd like, or anything else like this. This is really just for prompting on the terminal. It's not for printing lists of things, right? So this is for user interface. But anything you do inside of this has to be async to wait which means that you got to worry about not only callbacks, which we're seeing a lot of callbacks, so higher order functions, but you also have to worry about synchronous versus asynchronous if you work on this, which is why I wanted this example in here. Make sense? But that is what modern JavaScript kind of looks like. And I can actually give you some examples. I guess I can show you something real quick. No, that's Playground. The heck is going on? So let me do. And this is an example of one of our page files. You can see we import a lot of different modules, right? This is TypeScript, so technically we have to define types so that we can be type static. And then you start to get into the stuff down here, and it's a lot of const unload, sync, await. Anything you see colon something is actually the TypeScript portion of it. TypeScript is a kind of JavaScript that forces you to be type aware, meaning that if you say you're taking a variable, you'd say, I only want numbers. This variable can only be a number. And it forces that so that you don't get side effects, so that there's less likely of crashing, that kind of thing. Most of everything that I write and the companies I work with right now actually do TypeScript, but it's actually just JavaScript. It's like JavaScript with extra stuff. I said stuff. See, that was nice. So, but yeah, you can see it's a lot of the same kind of thing, with your waits, asyncs, and all your constant closes. So it's very similar to what the stuff you guys are going to see here is. But there is one last thing I want to do. So the last piece, and I'm only doing this because this is actually how you would kind of set up a project, right? Is that how the heck do I know that I'm supposed to type node space index.js? When you get to a project of, say, this size, there are literally hundreds of files, right? I mean, there are files on files on files on files. There are components that are shared between them, including common components that are shared between the ones that are shared. You've got all kinds of utility applications. There's just gajillions of them. And what the heck am I supposed to do to even get this darn thing running? So before, what I told you to do is type in the README, and that's still true, and that's always good. But generally speaking, what I recommend is that you do the same thing on all of your projects so that there's an easy way to always kind of at least run through that. And that is to just turn it into a darn script. Okay, so let's go to our package.json. I'm going to create one called start. And then we're just going to do node index.js. This is important because unlike a lot of our projects, you don't actually run the index.js file in your local folder. You actually run a file that's like in sources, and then a separate file for your backend that's in a different folder. So you're spinning off two different things, and you don't want to have to mess with all that, right? This way, I can just type npm run start, and any project I'm in is going to start. It's going to run. I don't have to worry about remembering to type node space whatever, or if you're running like React applications where you need to run the React precompiler before you run the node command and everything else like that. So by adding it as a script, then I type the same thing. Another example of why we use scripts, right? So, and that lets us do npm run start. And boom, it's our application for us. That's pretty nice. Okay. This methodology is so common, the NPM actually has a shortcut for it because everybody does the same thing on this. So instead of having to type npm run start, you can actually just type npm start. It knows start is a default common command. So npm start will run it as well. There's really only a couple of these. We should always basically use the same start command. What's the other command that we should always have inside of our scripts? What? No. What's the one that we set up during our
Test.
test? So those two are so common, in fact, that they run by default. So when you type npm run or npm test, it actually executes npm run test for you. And the only reason I'm pointing this out is because you'll see people type npm, or you'll see npm test, and then like, well, what is that doing? It's actually just doing npm run test. So it's just one of the scripts that are built in there, right? It's not like npm init, which is a separate thing that npm runs, or npm install, which is something that npm does for itself. It's a default one where it looks inside your package.js file, package.json file to see what's there. Everything seems to work. Man, we should get some testing so we can test to see if everything works, but we'll worry about that next week. So you can always tell if the class is kind of doing the topics and stuff it should be doing when the classroom like mentors are nodding. They're like, yeah, okay, that's good. Yeah, he's not saying bullshit. This is stuff we actually see. So that's a good sign. When I see them nodding, I'm a happy camper. When I see them going, that's usually a bad sign. Okay, so we're gonna take a quick break. But when we get back, we're gonna do the exact same thing. We're gonna create a new project that's a web-based, the foundation of the web-based to do this. If we get through this, get the stuff set up for this, I won't even get into the whole topic. You've got to do a lot of web programming. You know how to create a text box and a submit button, and then save that to an array, and hopefully shove that into a bunch of lists or something like that. We're just gonna do the initial setup, and I'll show you what browsers think what you do, so that you can see how that works for you. But once we get done with the second one, and everyone's on the same page, then if we want to go deeper on terminal one, we can do that. If we want to go deeper on the web one, we can do that. If you guys want to work on your spreadsheet, we can do that. Whatever piece of this project you want to work on. But let's take a 5-10 minute break real quick, then we'll go to the bathroom. And then when you get back, I want you to do this. So basically what we've done so far, command line one, except we're going to create a new one, a website. We're going to install one package on it, and then you should create an empty index.html. And so when you get back, you should have all of that set up and get it to show, right?
Cool.
Nobody seems happy. All right, we're going to require everyone singing now.
You first.
Hallelujah! I'll say. I'm that guy that if you tell, like, people would not know, I'm not taking some, but
So if I do NPM test, it runs my test.
Yeah.
But if I also, if I do NPM new script, it asks, did you need to run NPM run new script? So trying to figure out why it will run this one, it's just.
that's what I was just saying. Test and start are so common. They're automatic, like it's only really those two. There might be one or two levels, like NPM. But NPM knows that people run tests and they start applications too often. That and it's dark, so they test the usually do NPM units. If it's not wrong, it looks better. But because start, and test. So they don't use those, they just follow the short. That's actually.
There you go.
I didn't do it earlier. It actually. Models. That's what anything else, it's trying to run.
So it's always just go to doctor to stay with, yeah.
I mean, yeah. So out of the 7 scripts that I have, just there was a Dan, there was a Bill, there was a what is that? There's a bunch of actually, most of the time, I think I find started.
So I think that's.
Because we run data in production environment, they don't necessarily. And so I need to make sure I'm just.
If you use OneDrive documents, so that's why when this one pulls up. It's like syncs with your real documents. OneDrive is messing with me with that.
Yeah.
Like, so here is your OneDrive, this right here. So if you were to go to this documents, it is not OneDrive. If you can think between those two.
If you guys ever wonder how far along you've come, go take a look at some of the JavaScript you wrote in the JavaScript class. And then take a look at this. It looks like a different language, right? It turns out it's not, but it does. You guys have come a long ways in 4 weeks. Okay, so I know it's a lot, and this class is generally centered around giving you a lot and just kind of piling on you and then letting you guys work through as much as you can because there isn't any substitution other than that. You just have to do it as much as possible. If you want to package that JSON file? The list? Oh, yeah, because that's what I told you guys to do.
There's a good chance for you to test it if you're following this guy here.
Can I use this, or can I split it out?
You're starting completely from the beginning. So you said?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
So you can close everything. And start from the beginning. This is a good test for you because.
I can still-
Yeah. So. You create a new inbox for your progress. Yeah. 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 I don't know. I think that's a lot for. Where is it? Where do you want to start this for? This is, you navigate to the border of this one story, but that's. Oh, that's. Yeah. And I'm sure like there are negotiations, that makes it with you. That's the next thing. We've already one of the reasons that's one of the people, but it's the civilians and it's on the house. Over there,
Yeah.
if you do PWD, it'll show you what. That seems pretty fun. Zero, 30. No, so. Yeah, so.
Why?
No, I didn't.
Why?
We can. Sort of control. Yeah, I think they do, that's the kids. Yeah, that's it. I just, so I think right, okay. So. So I'm just part of the Republican. Using all those short. I was thinking of it as well, but. I just have it. Right. I don't think I'm going into. No. Yeah, so that was one of the first things, you're just doing great projects for this, right? So if you want to go and do that and then start adding things into there.
Yeah.
All of this stuff. And this. Here is, okay. You can see what positive readings. We all like.
Yeah, it's just be in your case.
Okay. So this.
We are the other commodity is the students actually do the underlying stuff. One of the things that's very different between Windows and the stuff it's actually just speaking the bottom. Like it's man line is the way where on Windows systems they try to create they spoke through application Windows WinForm backend system, which made it possible to do anything with Windows install the device, get all this stuff just to the library. But that's really bad for being talking about web-based application. For web has to be a really tiny server.
You should do make directory and
It's super fast, it's super efficient. So everything that can happen with Xamarin, so I do it through Xamarin, you guys know. The tools themselves are really handy. So for example, let me do it, So here, like, this is our project thing, right? This is, it has some built-in tools for it as well, right? So I can do like, I was showing this.
Yeah.
And it will automatically pull up the blame for every line of this file, who wrote it, when they wrote it, which version of the history it's a part of, all that kind of stuff. Well, it actually is just reading this from the GITS terminal, taking this and then putting this into the interface, right? So if you're using Vim, or you're using VS Code, or you're using something else, you know what's actually happening. Kind of the same way that, like, I don't write CSS anymore. No one on the team writes CSS anymore. We use libraries like Material UI and React. So we write JavaScript and the JavaScript does the CSS for us. But if you don't know what's going on and something breaks, you're like, what the fuck? If you don't know the flags for it is, you don't even know how to troubleshoot the problem. If you get an error in VS Code that says, you can't use the manually like Git status and you need to understand the opportunities of all this. Yes, you can use all this through VS Code. My data engineer Frank, you gotta. Because he almost never does. It's all the way through. If he does, it's that little command line at the bottom of VS Code. So that's what he does. And that's what he's used to. And I think he knows. He understood. He's got. He's got on the back end at this point. He just doesn't show his hand on it.
Then it's also once you. No, yeah, I think you like, good enough, and then it makes it easier to like. Cool. So then from there, you've got the direct one onto here and then start. Yeah, I think you got ever see like projects before you build any other ones, make a whole different consent project. Next up was. Remember this?
Yeah, this is so good.
I'm guessing that, but I'm gonna assume that is.
And then whenever you're in projects, go ahead and you can create another direct link.
We did provide.
Right.
I guess he wants. He doesn't want to.
Oh, I would, you're probably not gonna just.
No, no, it's. Remember your initial line, and when I say you built out some forward, so this could get into the.
Let me show you real quick.
When we get this. Whenever we put in a product, we check it and they it's called, and then like. And then from there, you moved on and then get close, so we actually basically. So it's.
Yeah, this is the Rolotext README. So getting started, making sure you're having the right version of Node, set up instructions for both Mac and Linux, setting up the development server, how to get connected to AWS, and how to deploy it into production. I mean, we put everything that you need to be able to do the work in the README, so you can just follow it and boom, be running. Yeah. So I heartily confirm your default.
Oh.
Reaction to everything. Did you just lift eyebrows at me like, you figured it out, yeah.
It made it, that's what I mean by.
Everybody's getting pretty chippy for their code breaking all the time.
Yeah.
He's chippy, you're chipper.
And then. And then they.
All together.
And that's what.
Oh, that's my daughter.
It's southern. And you're now on the seventh.
Isn't she beautiful?
Kids.
24, 18, 15, and
Is that eight?
So my oldest graduated from last year ago. They degree in electrical engineering. And she works as an electrical engineer for the firm. She like a very expecting her to get in my program.
That's what.
No, they wanted to have yeah. So my biggest is graduating next May. And that's going in the center. My 15-year-old, 16-year-old girl, which is.
Because for some reason, I don't know.
It is the hard time, like, guys, like, I gotta say best friends than you. I've taught my best friend to leave more times. Right, like, but you're just guys like, yeah, it's good. Everything happens, you go to high school, it's good, we're good. All of my girls are like, yes, in high school, but all of a sudden. The girls are always crazy and some things stupid and some things like, and they're like, yeah, I think it's nice to be, we keep talking, so many things, and I look like her, you're like. Fuck that shit. So like a milk up with them. And then of course, you're going through all the notes, you really at the beginning, especially, and so a lot of strong craziness and things, and trying to figure out where they are. Let's be realistic. The journey from being a child to a woman is a lot harder than the one to being a child with an accident. Like matter that like never want to having actually become like like. Oh, that's stupid. Oh, that's stupid. And then they're idiots, but at least, you know, they only heard of it celebrating. So, and my heart just breaks and great. And the older going to do this, and I'm well, look at my wife, I'm like.
That's the battle.
But thankfully, my daughters have always been. Staying with my daughter have always been very comfortable with me. Yeah, so it's like, yeah. Product. Yeah, the frame, you know, okay, and then my corner shut down and so like, oh, yeah. Go home. Yeah, that's nice. And then the other thing too is that they handle boys pretty well. And when I talked to my oldest daughter one time, it was like, you don't take a shit from boys. She goes, "Yeah, I have to do this." She goes, they can't embarrass me, and they can't make me do anything I don't want because I have to.
Good job, Matt.
Yeah. Well, I remember when my daughter was like going off to practice, she was cross country, and so I was dropping her off at like 6 in the morning and 5:30 in the morning. Just walking on girls doesn't mean they said, sweet, you remember your 5:30? Remember what you got at garage and you're in the boyfriend like. Yeah, Dad, thanks. Walked off, so, like, you can't do anything, you know. They're pretty tough. They've gotten used to that. All right. So you guys should be pretty close to this. I want to take just a second because the opportunity presented itself and talk a little bit about, you know, your kind of future development and careers and stuff like this. Okay, we probably should wait a minute because there's still like 3 or 4 people being on.
Oh, yeah. Let's try it and see what happens.
That's another problem. I have to go. Guys are like, I'm gonna jump off this. Dad, girls like, I don't know, should I? If I take this step, the sidewalk may collapse. I just don't know. I don't feel like I know if I'm walking really well. I've only been doing it for about 16 years. I can become a better walker. It's like, oh. You walk 100 times better than your brothers. Smashing into the wall.
Alright, so that's all you guys know, which is the internet, which you know, too.
I did.
Yeah. You didn't bring this.
Yeah.
You can probably start. Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
You guys, they have been trying to do enhance installs that have to be browser tested. The reason why it's for browser testing is because it doesn't have to be installed globally. It can run as a local node package, you have to do anything. So you don't, you just do npm install browser state, no dash G, you're good. That's but that didn't work. Don't do dash G. I'm trying to stay away from global packages because, well, generally with that, you don't want to install packages globally. There's something you have to, MPX and miscellaneous things like that. But even the things that we thought we could install globally, like freaking Node, you can't because each of my projects was a different version of Node, so it's just, I try not to install anything globally. And in fact, on my system, I actually got global set to my local user directory. So I have to install globally, it doesn't actually install globally. Everything is on it. So. I come from the Linux world, we just don't install stuff globally and create it as root. Because then if you fuck something up, you can on a computer, shoot.
So we can install on your library stuff, right?
Ah, there's my girls, look at that.
These are the ones that like.
Hey, look, those are my girls. Yeah, aren't they gorgeous? Man, do what? Actually, this one did in high school, she didn't in college. But my son runs cross country, Mount St. Mary's. Yeah, he runs a 4:48 mile. I was like, he tried out his freshman year, it's like, you can really cross country, this is his rank out country, she's like, we don't have to socialize with other people. And he doesn't like to be other people, he likes to push himself. So he tried out the cross country, they put him on the JV team his freshman year, and he came to the first team. And they were like, all right, you're the varsity team. You're varsity, so fast. You've been running ever since. And I got it from the mom because I don't know if you noticed, I have sausage wearing legs. I mean, I look like a peanut scared doing this all the time. My wife has long legs and then no trunk. So if our kids get my wife's legs and my torso, they're like normal size. And if I get my wife's torso and my legs, then they're midget. And but he does, he runs a 4:48 mile. He's runs a sub 17 5K. 18. He didn't even run during the summers. He loves cross country, has no desire to do it like for college. He's super excited about being able to do college. Yeah. But he's gonna be a priest. He joined the seminary and he'll start at St. John Vianney Seminary in Minneapolis in September. So yeah. He's already got this whole black things. Yeah, I don't walk around campus with the little black thing in the common. No, I was born in Minnesota, but you don't tell that when I say we're Minnesota, or pop, or Chicago, don't you know, or over cute, one of those things. I grew up in Arkansas, went to college in Springfield, Missouri, and in my Boolean logic class, I met a disturbingly gorgeous woman. And there were kids coming to computer science. He was taking computer science, helped create an OU better out program. Because they would think about 1 out of every 10 applicants, it was the best meteorology program in the world. So of course, that's the one you want to go to. So she was taking computer science, help her get into it. About 3 weeks in class, after class, he's like, so I'm president of the Czech Bowl. We have meetings.
Another question.
And that's the only time I pick up line is ever worked in the whole history of mankind.
Yeah, that's.
Started with Chesapeake meeting, when she got into the OU meteorology program, after graduated for moved down here, married, or somebody obviously less intelligent, less attractive. That doctor is not ever going to be another actor. And it's going to be on here, not drunk and fat, and possibly good. And 24 years and 10 kids later, we've been living in Northern ourselves.
Norman. Well, you're fun.
God's country, heck yeah. She gave me a home, a wife, a kid, and a love of OU football all in 1 year. It was a pretty good year, so. Okay, we got just a second to look up? No, you're good. Do we have just a second? Okay, so this isn't the keyboard thing. I want to take just a minute. And just because the opportunity presented itself and talk a little bit about like future careers and stuff, if you guys want to do this, right? So just to kind of re-summarize what I think every instructor has said about 100 times over. If you want to get your first software development job as a basic front-end developer someplace, you need about 300 hours of coding, not 300 hours of looking at videos, not 300 hours of listening to disturbingly handsome instructors giving you guys all this stuff. You need about 300 hours behind the keyboard, okay? And that's because software development is a lot more like learning a musical instrument than anything else. You can't, it doesn't matter what you do or how many videos or books you read, until you get behind a piano and you just play and practice, you're not going to be good. If you get your 300 hours in 4 months, you're probably going to be in really good shape. If you practice 300 hours over 25 years, which is what I have done with the guitar, turns out that you can play Smoke on the Water, and that's about all you can freaking play, right? So the tighter you can fit that in, the faster and the better you're going to be. It's all about practice. If you guys spend a couple hours a day on this, the likelihood of you being able to do this as a career is really high. And then, of course, once you get a career, you get 8 hours a day doing this, or let's be realistic, half of that's meetings, so 4 hours a day doing this, right? But try to fit in as much of that time as possible. The only thing you can do is practice. And yes, you're going to fuck up the thing. It's not going to work. You're not going to figure out why it's not working. It's not going to compile. There's a freaking, it's just, oh, you type git install in a git install directory. Now you've got recursive gits and all kinds of crap happens. But when you figure out what happened and you fix it and you get it worked out, those are the moments you elevate. Every time you break and it doesn't work, those are the moments you elevate, right? Failure is the best freaking teacher with this stuff, right? So that's what you need. The other thing you honestly need is you need to start becoming part of the community. All right. 85% of development jobs are gotten because you know somebody who needs a job, or actually more likely, you know somebody who knows somebody who happens to know a job and they give you a reference, right? One of the best parts about OK Coders, and it's a thing that's actually grossly undervalued, is the fact that you already get access to a community. This is a little bit like, it's going to sound, there's going to be some hubris to this, but I've had a successful technology exit. I have started 3 software companies, and I'm looking at starting a 4th. Zach has been the senior engineer at the fastest growing tech startup in town. He co-founded and CTO of another company, and is co-founding and CTO of another company. You couldn't get on our calendars to talk to us in most cases if you weren't students, because there's only about 800 vendors that want to spend time like, hey, Mr. Rockers, I've got this new thing. Would you like to talk? Yeah, fuck you. You just don't have time. But you guys get access to that, and you have access to each other. There's a really good chance the ones of you that actually finish this program are going to end up in jobs, which means 5-10 years from now, you're going to have gone through OK Coders together. And so when you reach out to, to whoever and say, hey, I'm kind of looking, what you got? Oh, I'm over here at Heartland. They've got an opening now. You'd be great for it, right? You need to start making those connections, start talking. The connections you have from the mentors who, with the possible exception of one, is a really good person and a great developer, right? And are great resources to have. The instructors are great resources to have. You guys get access to a plethora. The instructors are surprisingly amazing. Frank Evans, the guy that I'm trying to work on with Rolotext right now, is the best data engineer I've ever met in my entire life. I mean, world class. The guy could make $3 million a year right now. That's what he'd get paid to work at OpenAI, and he could get a job there tomorrow with no problems. Yeah, he's just fantastic. he taught the data science, the data engineering class for OK Coders when we had one back a couple of years ago. These resources you have are fantastic. Use them, spend time there. Talk to me, talk to other people. I will always answer your phone calls or Slack messages. It just might be a day or 2 or 3 months late, but I will always answer because you guys were students and I can't say no. I literally had a student that hit me up just the other week. He decided after getting out and going back to the oil field after being a student for like 3 years, he did IT for about a couple of years and then went to the oil field because it paid better, got out of that, did a couple other jobs as product management. Then he hit me up because he wanted to be able to do cybersecurity. He wasn't in the cybersecurity program. He was my student back, whatever day in IT, over at like ITV Tech, for gosh sakes. He hit me up. He's like, Bob, don't know if you remember. I'm like, I freaking remember you. I didn't remember him, but I remembered that I had somebody like that in class. And he goes, I'd like to do cybersecurity. I'm like, excellent. Let's get coffee. We got coffee. I introduced him to, I don't know, the CEO of well, Alias Forensics was one, and then the other one was, oh, what's its name? Jess and John's company. Anyway, but the CEOs of these 2 cybersecurity firms. And they sat down with him and said, you need to learn this, this, and this. You're not ready yet. But he had those introductions. That's what you need. You need time. You need to be involved with the community. You just need to kind of network and socialize. One of the best communities around is actually the Techlahoma community. They have a lot of technical user groups, things, meetings. The web dev group meets once a month on Wednesdays. There's free pizza there every time. So you go to lunch, you get free pizza, you get a presentation on the next version of React and why it's going to dominate it, Angular or whatever the hell else people are talking about on any given day. But it's great. You're meeting people, you're getting to learn some tech, you get some free pizza. Just pick some of these groups and go to them. The reason I bring that up is because in the room right over that right now, the Oklahoma City Pythonistas, the Python users group, is meeting right now. Python and JavaScript are basically the 2 languages everyone's kind of learning right now. Python because all the data science stuff is being done in Python, which I think is an anathema to God and just an insult to humanity, but we'll ignore that for right now. You guys can ask me my opinion on Python one day. But the Python users, the Pythonistas, the Python users group is meeting over there right now. Do you know what they're doing at the user group meeting right at this moment? They're doing web automation testing in Python. I mean, seriously, how freaking cool, right? Like if this is the stuff you guys wanted to do, you could go to a free Sunday if you weren't in class with a disturbingly intelligent and unbelievably handsome instructor. You could be over there learning this stuff right now, right? So that's the kind of thing. Just pick a user group once or twice a month, go to it, see it, who's there. You're going to run into a lot of the same people. You're going to run into me. You're going to run into Zach and that kind of stuff as they're happening. Good connections, great people as a general rule. And it's likely that's how you'll get your first job. Honestly, that's likely how you'll get your first job. If you finish this program and are good, then when somebody says, hey, you knew Caitlin or whatever, was she any good? I'll be like, she was awful. Are you kidding me? All she did was give you shit the whole time. No, I meant as a programmer. Oh yeah, she's a great programmer. No, I mean, that's about the best recommendation you can get from me is you give Bob shit, which is a really good sign. And you also happen to be a good programmer, right? So, and that's, Bison hired like 4 people, 5 people, 6 people out of OK Coders. Just because it's like a 6-month, interview process, right? I get to see how much work you guys actually do. And if you actually finish your homework and do all this stuff, because there's no grade, I can't make you, but by gosh, if you finish all this stuff and you show off, then that's how we hired Tony. So anyway, so Pythonistas are over there. I invited them to come over and say hello. So at the very least they could, oh, my battery's low. So at the very least, you guys can get a chance to meet some of them. But if we get done and they're still doing the thing, you should go over there and say hello and tell them you're in the OK Coders class and just start your kind of journey. Okay. Did everybody get this running? Who has not raised your hand yet? Anybody? You have not.
I've got something else.
Oh
We
yeah.
have a speaker at noon, and it's 12 or 11.
We have a speaker?
Yeah, he's coming through.
Who is?
Kimberly.
Oh, Kimberly. Yeah, she was over in the other room. I didn't know we had a speaker.
Well, yes. Well,
Who you're gonna tell the
I just reminded everyone in the channel yesterday. Sent
I don't read anything you fucking say in the channel.
I'm gonna verbalize that every chance that I get.
At what point in time did you think, oh yeah, I'm just gonna steal an hour of this guy's time because he's the instructor and he doesn't get to say any of this? So thanks a lot. I prepped for like a 3-hour class and this is what you did to me.
Did you really?
Yeah, no,
Just think, if you would have checked your calendar.
So basically what he's saying is, well,
yeah, I got that. I got that. So anyway, all right, well, Kimberly should be over in just a minute. What I wanted to show you, I'll just set one up real quick. We'll be done in 15 minutes. That's not a problem. So let's go ahead and set up this project. Just so you can see, and then I want to show you how you can use it. What did I call this thing? Website to-do list. Excellent. Let's copy that. So if you guys want a re-reminder or anything, then that's great. If not, Node, because I like my
We did that with the command last time, didn't we?
did what?
The node ignore.
Yeah, oh, well, not this, not earlier today. I showed you guys earlier today. Yeah, I've been showing you how to do it manually, but this will do it for you now. You guys have done enough. I'm okay with git clone. CD website, whatever, npm inits. Yeah, it looks good. Sure. Entry point, that looks, oh, nope, I don't want that entry point. I'm going to do, website to-do list. Entry point's going to be index.html because it's a website, right? Test command is echo. We really need tests. Git repository, let's paste that in there. No keywords, author. You could just go into the file and edit it. You don't have to like rerun the init command. The easiest way is to go into package.json if you pick the wrong entry point. License, yes. npm install. npm install browser sync. Git status, git add dash a, git commit. And then the last thing I said was create an index.html. So I'm gonna touch index.html. Let's do code index.html. Just so that I can what's the how do you HTML? Just that?
place everything in.
Thank you.
It's the implementation point and then.
Sweet. Okay, I'm gonna put a message in here. So, hello world. All right, got any hello world now? This is cool. So we simply run npm wait, browser sync. I did it earlier. Browser sync. Nope, not in that shell. Oh hell, I've got the stuff right here. So browser sync will run a browser in your local. It's super easy. But I'm just going to do, we're going to open up our package. No, wrong file. Assuming I can find this shit. Okay. All right, so all I'm gonna do now is actually do that's not the package.json file I want the other one. Code package.json. And all we have to do is actually set up a npm browser I literally had this working on Playground just a second ago. Now,
Okay, so. This is gonna be like, in your first learning, it's something that you're gonna depend to. But better just to focus on the next area. Right.
it should be in the folder. I will.
It was a fancy for the next.
There we go. Okay, so all I have to do for my start command, so the reason why I wanted to do this browser sync one was to show you the scripts again. So if you do npm install browser sync, okay, then you can put into your package.json in that folder, in your website to-do list folder, browser sync start. One of the things npm does do is it does automatically load the nodes modules directory that's in the folder. So you don't have to install it globally, it'll just install it in the local folder, and then it will source that, see that it's there and run it. So we can do npm start, and it will run browser sync start. If you type browser sync, it won't run because it's not in your wider system, but the node, when you run your node scripts, it automatically looks at your node modules directory because it knows that anything you're running from that directory must need to be in that directory. And so it basically sources that directory for you. And when you do that, browser sync gives you a local IP address you can connect to. And excellent. Now I have to just tell it to look at the index.html file, but you guys can look at the documentation for that. So it does by default also give you the documentation for browser sync. So that's pretty cool. So questions, comments? All right, we've got no time left, so I'll leave you guys from here, but make sure you make changes, say, okay? Yes?
So. This, browser sync thing, might have missed the explanation for this. It's just to, like is that a live server basically?
Yes, it's like live server, but we don't have to install local globally. I also like the fact that by default, it'll host up anything that's in the local directory. So you can do, I don't care about that. I don't care about that.
So last week, I couldn't do a global data, just for example, my local.
Mhm. NPX, so NPX is a tool to manage node at a higher level. But one of the things it will do is it will download, source it, run it local, but it doesn't save it. So it's like a run once command. It just runs the npm command one time and executes it. So it's a special, you'd have to do that every time.
But I can do. um,
Ah, yes, server mode. Sorry. Here it is. So start server. Let's try this again.
What this is also as part of that, and the final step is to actually put all your they change the rock together. Gold.
Would you do?
I just added the dash service.
There you go. So yeah, browser sync dash server, and it will look for an index.html file, and then you can just do all the development inside there. But also understands pathing, so if you create like a CSS folder and other stuff in there, it'll route to path it for everything on that. So
So how is live server and browser sync different?
we're just two different programs. There's like 100,000 to do this. There's about 100,000 different live server type things out there.
So they're basically just preference.
It is preference. I think this one's easier to set up. And has less configuration. Live server, I think actually is built into VS Code.
It is.
Yeah. So live server is the one that's built into VS Code. It has a tendency to be built for using another user interface, but this is just you run it directly from inside of npm start.
Different way to accomplish that, anything basically. A lot of the stuff that you're gonna learn at first is gonna be the easiest.
Yeah, let's
So.
makes a really good point. The problem with software development is what's the difference between live server and browsers? There are two different ways to handle the same thing. There are 100 billion different ways to handle the same problem with software development, and lots of people solve it with the exact Angular React. It's different ways of solving the exact same problem, right? Even programming language, when you're talking about Node or Python or Perl or PHP or different ways of solving the same problem. There's a really good chance that everything you guys are learning in class, you will not have any of it exactly like what you're actually doing in the place you're working at. You're learning how to think and how to look at code, not necessarily what all of this is, the exact things you're going to be doing on the job. So, because everybody uses different tools. So, yep, yep. We have a virtual connection called a loopback device, which is basically a network that just points back to your own computer. That's what 127.0.0.1 is. And that's what you're hitting, or local host, same thing. So, Miss Kimberly, how are you? Hey, fantastic, thank you. All right, peace out, everyone. Are you going to join the Zoom call for the people in Tulsa? Okay. You also didn't get an invite?
Yeah.
I didn't even know you were speaking, so whoever's coordinating this has no idea what's going on. So obviously gross incompetence by somebody. I don't know who. I'm not naming any names. For this?
No, because they sent all these out like whenever we first started.
Oh, yeah, okay. Wait, everybody should definitely see this before I do it, right? Get status, get add, -a, get commit, get push, right? Every time, all the time, no matter what? All right, for those of you online, you've seen this already, so I'm going to stop sharing my screen.
Now, we do have some people that wanted to join the conversation virtually, so I don't know how. we're set that up.
Can I just send you the Zoom link?
I don't know if they sent you a Google meeting or.
Yeah. All I got was Google.
Yeah, I don't even know if there's a Google meeting set up, like a link.
Oh, no, there's
No.
Oh.
Yes. Got it. Okay, that's how.
Okay. I have to do it with clicks. But I get.
You're on the Texahoma channel, right, Kimberly?
Yeah.
There you go. Why don't you join that one? And once you see me, I'll let you use the micro, you can talk and I'll mute. Can you guys still hear me okay? Can anyone
Yeah.
hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear
I can't
you.
hear anybody? Okay. For whatever reason, I'm not hearing you. Or at least if somebody's talking, I'm not hearing you.
It was good. It was a little glitchy with the video. Meeting just like your screen. And like, so we were seeing things on the screen from like 10 seconds ago, and including the video on the speaker, which is creepy, because like you see them and you see them like. It's like, you can't talk, so you need to- I don't know. Overall, it was good.
That's great.
You want to unmute? And then I'll mute?
Yes, I have unmuted. I don't know if anyone can hear me.
We can hear you. Yeah.
Okay. I'm turning up my volume, so I can hear you also. Okay, see, I didn't bring slides to show. I could show my screen on the big screen if that
You can, come on.
made sense. Maybe I,
Kimberly, I made you a sheet of-
okay, thank you. So here I am. Yeah, I think I
So
that's right.
except for this schedule, which I think you want to get anywhere where it's all, so you just remember that and then. No, getting more is good.
Have all met Kimberly before?
Not.
Kimberly is, man, she's like a staple of Oklahoma City tech scene. She's been around, as long as I've ever seen anything. She's also a disturbingly talented C# developer. And yeah, I mean, it's been, she's awesome. And she knows a lot about the community. She knows a lot about the people. She knows a lot about the job market. She's just fantastic. And so I don't know what you're speaking about, but I think it's awesome you're here. So thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. I'm gonna be talking about how to network.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we'll go ahead and get started. So first of all, I need to be able to see my notes, and I don't necessarily want to share them with y'all because they're in like Kimberly speak. So you can see my background, I guess. I don't think I'm sharing anything with Zoom other than just my face. So, networking. Okay, so newer people who are trying to get into the industry, I think lots of times make the mistake of thinking, okay, I will learn how to code, and there'll be a day when I have learned how to code, and then I will start my job search mode. And that's really a wrong way of thinking about it, because by the time first of all, there's never going to be a day when you have learned to code. You're always going to be learning to code. So don't feel like there'll be a day, there'll be maybe a graduation day for OK coders, but there'll never be a day when it's okay, coding, learning done. Let's move on to the job search portion. Ideally, you'd be starting that now, and specifically networking now, because networking is all about creating a basis of relationships with people that you can build on later. So ideally, you'd be out in the community, engaging through Slack, through tech events, getting to know people, so that when the day comes when you are ready to find opportunities, you have those connections built with them. Because ideally, you would get to know this first level of connections, but then that gives you access to their connections. So the way I've gotten essentially all of my work has been less through that first level of connection and more the people that they're connected to get the two of us connected. So ideally, you'd be meeting people who know lots of other people and they know who you are. You know, people say it's not what you know, it's who you know. But then someone told me it's really not even who you know, it's who knows and remembers you. So whenever the job opportunity comes up at a company and before they go to LinkedIn or even Slack or anywhere, they ask developers, who do you recommend for this? Because they don't want to go through getting 2,000 job applications. They want a personal connection. So you want to be the person whose name pops into their mind. Oh, we have a React opening. Do you know anybody who knows React? It's gonna be a junior level. Do you know anybody? You want to be the person on that person's mind. And so there are a few ways to do that. Again, one of them is making sure people you meet know that you are that person, know what you are wanting to do, what you're skilled at, what your interests are. So one way to do that is to create an elevator pitch. So, and a way to introduce yourself that tells people who you are, what you do, what you want to do, things like that. So for example, my name is Kimberly Collins. Bobby already told y'all a little about me, but I'm a C#.NET developer. I also work with SQL Server. I've been doing that for 18 years. I'm a freelance developer, so I'm always looking for small businesses I can work with or small projects I can help out on. And so I'd love to meet people who, do that type of thing also. So an example, just a quick, that was not even your 30-second elevator pitch maybe, but what's your name? What do you do? What do you want to do? Who do you want to meet? That's helpful at a tech event also. It's like, hey, can you introduce me to someone? Is there anyone here? It's also a great way to get out of a conversation. Like people think that networking, the hardest part is starting the conversation. I found that it's pretty easy to start. It's a little bit hard to okay, bye. So one trick there, because I was asked specifically to share tricks for introverts. So I think that if you are introverted, you'll find that most of us are, I think more than in the general population. So don't feel like you're alone in that. And I'll try as I go through my notes to share some tips that are specific to introverts because I'm 110% introverted. So make sure that people know who you are, what you want to do, something memorable and unique about yourself. So again, you want to be remembered for something positive, ideally, not like the person who did the whatever embarrassing thing, like no one will remember that. But you want to be the person on someone's mind when they think, oh, we have a Python opening. It's like, oh, that person that I just met, who was that? You want to be the name on their mind. I've also heard the advice, I think it was actually Tabby who shared this, the one lady who spoke a month ago, to have a technical version and a non-technical version. So you might not know as you're talking to someone how technical they are. So you might have a broader non-technical version of who you are and what you want to do. And then as you realize, oh, they're a developer too, they sort of speak my language. Then you can start talking about what JavaScript libraries you are really excited about today. So maybe have a more technical version, because the business non-technical hiring manager, they may or may not recognize those terms, but seeming excited. I think that's really the key that I want to get across is how important it is to feel, because I'll hear intros from people who are new who say, I'm new, I'm a newbie, I'm a beginner, I'm a student. Those are words to cut out of your elevator pitch, to cut out of your GitHub, out of your LinkedIn, because everyone is new to something. I'm new to Python, for example. So don't, because once you put the new label on yourself, call yourself new or beginner, that sticks. So you want to replace those words with words like, and aspiring also, kill that. You're not an aspiring web developer. You have developed for the web at this point. So you are a web developer. So own that, call yourself that. Replace new with starting. That's like an action word. I'm learning, I'm excited about, I'm interested in. You don't have to know anything about the thing. You're just interested in it. And these things you're sharing with people will give them something to kind of connect with you on or attach to, or get a conversation going. So you mentioned 2 or 3 things that you're interested in. Oh yeah, that one thing, I'm interested in that too. And then when they get home and you send them a LinkedIn request, oh yeah, that was the person who was really excited about that one thing. So those are the things you're looking for in your elevator pitch and when you're meeting people. I really want to push Slack, Techloma Slack. I know you're all in there. What I don't see is a lot of posts from y'all. So I know that you have the private channel for your cohort, but there's all these other channels where you could be engaging and getting to know people in the community or letting them get to know you. There's the Code Newbies channel, JobStalk, jobs I think you're already in by default. What other ones would be of interest to y'all? JavaScript would be a great place to ask questions, and it could be a technical question like, here's my code, please help. Or it could be, hey, should I use React or Vue? What do y'all thinking today? And that kind of gets a conversation going sometimes. And then each person that responds to you did that because they want to help you. They're excited about what you're excited about, and you can follow up with them in a private conversation. And so that kind of gets, because I think a big question is, how do I then find people to network with? what does it even mean to start networking with them? I feel like that's the best way to do that because the people who are engaging in Slack are doing that because they are also interested in that thing that you're interested in. So Jobs Talk would be a great place. In fact, right now, if you have a question that you'd like to ask about networking and job searching, go join that channel like literally right now, post in there. I know you all have your computers, so you could do that. And I want to be like controversial on purpose, but to ask a question like an opinion type question. Because that sometimes gets conversation going. And then 3 or 4 people will respond right away. And those are 3 or 4 connections for you to follow up with later. I know that some of y'all have posted in the Introduce Yourself channel. You might go back and either post there for the first time, or now that you've been doing this for a couple of months, you might be ready to post more details about what you're excited about, what you're learning, what you're interested in. That you kind of maybe know that a little bit more than you did a couple months ago. So I'd recommend going in there even today and saying, posting that little elevator pitch and saying the things that you are finding interesting about this course, what you are excited about, what you're wanting to do next, what you're interested in. It would be totally fine to post in there again now that it's been a couple of months. So definitely look for channels that are of interest to you. Slack has a good help guide for browsing channels as a channel browser. You can sort that by biggest channel to smallest. So the biggest ones would be good to go see. JavaScript is a pretty big channel. You can also search Slack for after:yesterday. And so that will give you, and maybe I can go see what that looks like right now and share with you, or maybe it'll be like things we don't need to go through yesterday. This is going to show a lot of my DMs, which I don't really want to necessarily share with y'all. There's an only my channels, and you can turn that off. And so as I'm scrolling through there, I'm seeing some OKC Pythonistas, and I'd love for you to be doing this right now so you can verify that you're seeing the same thing that I'm seeing. Some OKC Pythonistas, because we were just meeting down the hall. What else has been posted recently? So if you're into Python, or even if you're not, go check that out and see what's in there. I'm not trying to share it because, again, this is going to show my personal DMs, which I think have been totally appropriate, but just, I don't want to share a private conversation. Code Newbie, someone posted in there. So this will tell you Tech Talk. So this is the active, like people are posting that today because we searched for after:yesterday. I hope you all have been able to find that. This is showing you the active recent conversations and the people who are actively posting. So I'm seeing Chris, I'm seeing Amanda, I'm seeing Lance. So now I know some people who are there that, okay, again, we have potential connections.
It should, like what, because I usually write myself notes and like I see
Yeah.
it on there.
I can't see your,
Okay.
no. And vice versa. That's why I didn't want to share this. Like, this is my private conversations with people that we don't need to share that. Any other questions about Slack or searching in Slack or finding channels or finding conversations? As much as you can, try to be active and engaged just every once in a while. This is not a time-consuming time investment, but just every once in a while popping in and posting a question, posting an answer. Ideally, you might find sooner than you might think that you can answer questions. And if it's not, you're not 100% sure that it's correct, you can still like be part of the conversation and be involved and be engaged there. You're going to act like the people that you interact with are already your coworkers. So try to approach it less like I'm a student, I'm a newbie, I'm asking for help, and more, this is the way I'm going to act when I am your coworker, when I am a developer at your company. Show them what that looks like, because you're probably not going to impress them with like your JavaScript skills, even though I'm sure they're great. You're not going to be the best JavaScript developer out there. What they're looking for is someone who is easy to work with, easy to get along with, a good coworker. Because the people who you see in the Slack are your potential developer coworkers. And so those are the people you want vouching for you whenever the job position comes up. So whenever you have worked through a problem with someone and taken their feedback, you're showing them what you're like to work with. So almost start to feel like these people are, in some ways they are your colleagues, but treat them like potential coworkers. And then there's a progress, what's it called now? Progress updates, something like that. So you can find that channel where you can post. This is more newbie focused, but see, I can call y'all newbies. Just don't call yourself newbies. Your progress on things. So like this is where you show your excitement. So I think someone said, well, I don't feel like I really have anything to offer as a new developer. So how can I even network with people? It's like, well, what you're offering is your excitement and your enthusiasm. When you've been in this industry for 18 years or even 8 or even just a couple, I think you'll start to find like you know, the excitement and the novelty maybe wears off a little bit. And so when y'all come in and like, oh, I just learned this new thing, like, oh, I remember that. It feels so good to be part of that, part of people's lives. Speaking of Lance, yeah. So here we have a networking opportunity. The folks from the OKC Pythonistas group. Yeah.
Okay.
Do you have the time?
Next door. Oh, crap.
Okay, wait, I'll join you after this
That
then,
is also a really come.
right? Or coffee or drink of your choice. No pressure to drink alcohol, but right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do any of y'all want to introduce yourselves real quick?
Well, I suppose I could go first. I'm Lance, met some of you. I run the Oklahoma City Pythonistas meetup group. We're an official Oklahoma group. And today we went over testing. So unit tests, integration tests, and end tests, which are useful for web developers. And I'm hoping to, in this space, once a month, have a recurring meeting where it's either pair programming or having a presentation by subject matter experts, or just people that are interested in either learning code or getting better at code and meeting up with other people who like the snap language.
Where do you work and what position?
I'm a DevOps engineer at a local company for voter analytics. So while I do write code on a regular basis, it's a lot of YAML editing. So continuous integration, continuous delivery, setting up pipelines, and doing that with Python is just one of the ways you can. But yeah, been in IT for over a decade, and I've been a developer for about 4 decades.
You don't have to, but if you want to introduce yourselves, you can, or you can just go drink beer, that's fine too.
My name is Alan. I run a hosting company, and the interesting thing I suppose about that is that when I say hosting company, it's the hardware in the data center and then all the way up from there. And so there's just not a ton of people any longer that like lay on hands in the data center to deal with that level of computing. But I enjoy it tremendously.
My name's Eric. I'm actually probably more appropriately should be in this room. I just started out coding, but I'm just trying to pick some stuff up. I do social science, so let me go back to.
I'm April. I have been a data analyst, was a contractor, data contractor at Tinker, but recently the contract ended, so I'm looking for a job and just looking to learn more about Python, so.
Eric, are you in Techlahoma Slack? Okay, great.
Yeah, just
Okay, perfect. Excellent. So now you'll have 4 more people that you can go network with, follow up with, see at events, hopefully next month. Okay, OKC Pythonistas meetup. All right.
Well, thanks for letting us stop by.
Yeah.
We'll be next door if you're still around.
Okay. Thanks.
Appreciate it, guys. Happening.
Okay, so any questions, thoughts so far? Those are now 4 people that you know are in Techlahoma Slack. You can probably find them on LinkedIn. They were in the OKC Pythonistas group. There's an OKC Pythonistas channel, so you could find them relatively easily.
Does everybody here understand what CI/CD pipeline is? For example, works on DevOps for CI/CD pipeline? No. For in the software shop where they do CI/CD, that means that when you commit and push into GitHub, and it gets put into a particular branch, maybe you know the branch you're working on, but when it gets merged into it immediately gets packaged and deployed out and pushed to production. So you're constantly pushing live code out from the GitHub machine. It's generally not going to manage that process. Just to make sure that everything deploys out and it's scaled up and down. So he handles basically that side of it for
developers' favorite developers.
Yeah. Okay, so we talked about Slack. Let's talk about LinkedIn. So again, those are 4 people. I connected with some of y'all on LinkedIn already. If I haven't, please try to find me again, Kimberly Collins. You can find that link in Slack probably mostly easily to get me to get my LinkedIn page. I know that they used to allow unlimited notes with new connections, but I've seen recently that they only allow you like 5 per month or some low number. If you can, I would recommend, like ideally this person is in Techlahoma Slack and you say, oh, hey, it's nice to meet you, or I enjoyed your talk or whatever. And then you go see their LinkedIn, be aware that they will probably know that you, because I get this all the time, like whatever person viewed your LinkedIn. So they may or may not know, but just be aware that like they might know that you were snooping on them. And so ideally you would find something on their LinkedIn page that like, oh, you went to OU also. Oh, you work at this company. Can you tell me about that? Sending them a message in Slack and maybe then going to connect with them on LinkedIn. Because when I get LinkedIn connections from people I don't recall meeting, either I've never met them, I don't know who they are, or maybe I did meet them, I just don't remember. So they're not hitting that memorable elevator pitch. But I would recommend following up with people first in Slack. You can find them there if they're local, really trying to connect with them, as many local people as possible. And then on LinkedIn, sending them that connection. We're not just clicking connect. I think people feel like networking means just click connect on LinkedIn as much as you possibly can. That those connections really have no value because they don't know who you are. They don't know anything about you. They're not going to recommend you for a job because you're just a name to them. You are also a picture. That's something to be aware of, is make sure your picture on LinkedIn and Slack and GitHub represents you well, so that when I have met you in person and then I get a message in Slack, I realize that's the same person. I knew someone for several years who at an event said, oh, you're Kimberly Collins. It's like, yeah, like she had never connected that this person in Slack and this person at meetups was the same person. So be aware that it's good to have your real name, be authentic, a good like recent picture that shows you well. If your picture's 10 years old or some number of pounds ago, it's time to update that because we want people to be able to know that that is you. So you're meeting people at events, you're meeting people, you're watching their talks on Techlahoma's YouTube channel. Those people are most likely in Techlahoma Slack. They might not be active anymore if it's some number of years ago, but it's at least worth a try to look for videos on Techlahoma's YouTube channel, especially those short ones or something that even looks interesting to you at all. That person put time and effort into putting that talk together, and that's not for all of us the easiest thing to do. And so they put effort into that, even if you didn't understand like a word they said, you don't know what they're saying at all. You can always follow up with them and say, thank you so much for speaking. I really appreciate you doing that. If you did understand it to some extent, like, oh, I really appreciate your explanation of this thing. But could you go like, I really have this question with this other thing. And so when people like that boosts their egos, like, oh, someone watched my talk, someone enjoyed that. And when people said that to me, I think so much more highly of them, like, oh, they must have like good taste and they're excited about the same thing I'm excited about. And so I think more highly of those people, I know nothing else about them. Definitely go watch some short talks and connect with people. Your LinkedIn should, in your heading, describe who you are and want to be. So I see a lot of aspiring, what are some other words that I'd rather not see there personally? It's a little tricky if you are in a current job and don't necessarily want to like broadcast that you are planning to move, but I think there are ways that you can maybe just have what you're doing currently. And I see a lot of people use the like pipes to describe where they're wanting to go from there. So make sure that your heading describes like you are a web developer. Again, you're not aspiring, you are a web developer. So put that in your LinkedIn profile heading. I looked at the LinkedIn profiles of some of y'all. Some of y'all have filled in the about and featured sections really well, but not everyone has, and not everyone knows that featured is an option. So in the about, that's where you're going to have your sort of elevator pitch type intro about yourself, what your skills are, what you do, what you're wanting to do. There's also a featured section where you can have links to all these wonderful websites you're making. They're live sites, ideally. You can get someone from meeting you to seeing your code, like the results of your code, the website you've made. You want that to be in as few clicks as possible. So they found you, they found your LinkedIn and connected with you, and you don't want them scrolling very far before they're seeing like what you're all about. So the featured section is a place where you can do that. And again, just like in Slack, you're posting every once in a while what you're learning and excited about. Ideally, you'd be doing that on LinkedIn every week or 2 weeks, or at least once a month. Just being a regular presence in the community. And this is one of those things like, do what I say, not what I do. And LinkedIn specifically, I've taken a ton of stuff off because I'm getting hit up by so many recruiters that it was just ridiculous. It was driving me crazy. So I took a bunch of stuff off of LinkedIn. I stopped posting. And so if you would kind of like to be hearing from recruiters, I don't know that you necessarily will, but this is a do what I say, not what I do. But definitely fill in some details. You might think, well, I don't have any experience to show. Like if you've had any job at all, you can find some way to tie those skills to the job that you want to do. And I know that because of like your soft skills are so important also. And so you're gonna be dealing with people in the job you want. You've dealt with people in the job you have or have had. Find some way to show that some of the skills you have from those jobs do transfer to what you want, if that's just in your people. And I don't want to say just, especially if that's in your people skills. So that's Slack, that's LinkedIn. GitHub is another place where you can, and it might feel like these things are not networking, but I think they totally are, because I feel like half of networking is having a presence that people can connect with. So networking is not just you going out to the world and shaking hands and meeting people. It's also after that, they're going to go look you up and you want them to see like who you are and who you want to be. And this also gives them like things to connect with you on, helps you like sort of make those connections. So I feel like having a good presence in Slack, LinkedIn, and then also on GitHub. I don't know that any of y'all have a profile README. I really recommend that, as I think maybe one person in the class I looked up, I found one. That's another version of your LinkedIn about, maybe a little bit more personal, like people put in there the games they like to play, the pets they have. So a little bit more personal version of your LinkedIn like cover letter type information. That's where you'll have links to your repositories that you're most proud of, the code and a live site, ideally for like one or two. Your projects will also have a README that describes why you made this project, what was challenging about it, what tech you used, what was exciting about it, what you learned, what you'd like to do next if you had time. And again, these are all things that when people you've met go look at you and who you are, they'll find things that are interesting that y'all can talk about. Especially in an interview. Because I mean, one of our goals here is to get you the interviews, and that's where you'll be talking in more depth about your projects. So give them something to kind of like latch onto. Green squares, ideally you'd be getting some. Again, you want to look like an active developer. Yeah, okay, okay.
Square.
And so like an active currently employed developer will have green square, well, if they're using GitHub. So on some of my projects, you'll see months with none. And now you'll see months with some. Bobby got really excited about those green squares. So if you want to look like, because no company really wants to take the risk of hiring a new developer. They want you to already be a developer, and you are a developer, so look like one. And you'll look like one if you have green squares most days, Monday through Friday. Of course, on Saturdays, also the class. But if you could be most weekdays having a green square, if that's just updating your profile README, if that's just entering into a coding journal today, okay, coders, I learned whatever. Even if it's just a list of links, like, oh, today I did, this free code camp exercise. That's something. Like, I don't want you to game the system necessarily and just do like nothing to get green squares. But at this point, it really is more about quantity than quality. So don't worry about the things you're posting on GitHub being just amazing work. We're looking for consistent work. And so just put something on GitHub most days of the week, and you'll be building up in 3 or 4 months from now, you'll have 3 or 4 months of green squares. We can totally see when people do a boot camp and then stop, you'll see all these green squares and then nothing. So what you don't want is like, okay, I finished my boot camp, I'm going to start my job search process. And so the green squares end and there's just nothing. And so 2 or 3 months later, the person looks at your GitHub and it's like, what are you doing? You want to, again, appear that you are the active developer that you are and you want to be.
It was even worse, but just the green square. You want to have green squares on it's sad.
Right. This thing most days of the week kind of thing.
Exactly.
Yeah. The other thing is like when I see green squares on literally every single day, even Saturdays and Sundays, even holidays, like, are you just trying to get green squares, or like, are you automating this in some way? So it's okay to take days off, especially if it's a holiday or personal, like it's totally fine to not have a green square every single day, but most days of the week it'd be great to have a green square on it. Okay, so we talked all about how you are presenting yourself. And so the networking piece of this is you're going out into the world, ideally to local tech events like the one we just had, OKC Pythonistas. Some events I go to less because like this is a super interesting thing to me, I know all about it, and more just like, I actually don't know anything about this and I would kind of like to. And so I think newbies sometimes feel like there's gonna be a test at the door and like you have to pass the test before they let you in. Like that didn't happen today, and I don't think it's ever happened in the history of meetups. It's totally fine to go if you're just interested or you just have the free time and you want to meet some people. It is totally fine to just show up. And if they did somehow ask you a question, you're like, hey, I don't know, I'm just here to learn. Like, okay, great. Like people really, again, they really love that. Right? Just go for the food, that's fine too, but you're there to meet people. And so you're not necessarily wanting to shake hands with 100 people at an event, which I prefer the smaller events anyway. But that doesn't really, I think, count as networking if they, again, they're not gonna remember you or who you are or anything about you if you just try to shake as many hands as possible. Really, the goal is to like make authentic, real connections. And so even if you only talk to one person at an event, but you really connected with them, I feel like that's so much better than shaking dozens of hands. Again, that's when you're gonna practice your elevator pitch. It's okay to have different versions of it that you try. Like you introduce yourself to someone, like, hey, that sentence didn't go the way I wanted to, step back. And again, that's the introverted tip is like, you don't have to constantly be talking to people the entire time at an event. You can go out either outside or to a separate area and like give yourself a second to breathe and think through what you're gonna say to the next person. Like, okay, that sentence didn't flow off my tongue the way I really wanted it to. What if I said this instead? Okay, so now you do a little bit of that A/B testing, go to the next person and say something slightly different. Okay, that felt better. They engaged with me more. Okay. And then go to the next person and try that. Again, you're gonna have a more technical version and a less technical version. You're gonna start with a less technical, just a broad, like who you are and what you want to do. And then if you get the impression that they'd like to talk more about, nerd out about the nerdy stuff, then you can get into what's getting you excited about JavaScript or whatever it is. My recommendation, especially as an introvert, is to sign up to volunteer. So you're gonna get there early, you're gonna get to know the organizer, you're gonna seem like you're a person who's really active and engaged and excited about helping. You're gonna show your work ethic, you're gonna show that, like, again, you're just very excited to be there. Organizers are great people to know also because they know lots of other people. So your goal is to be meeting people who can introduce you to other people. So you want to get to know the organizers because they likely, as they're putting together the event, got to know lots of people. And so you can ask them, like, hey, I would really like to meet some hiring managers today. Are there any here? Do you know of anybody? Like, oh yeah, let me introduce you to this one person. And getting there early before everyone is sort of settled into their conversations gives you the chance to talk to people. Because I think that hard part is you get to the event and everyone's in their little circles and you just kind of get a drink and leave. So like getting there early and being part of the check-in desk or volunteering in some way gives you some like activity to do, gives you some reason to talk to people, gives you some out if you need a second to breathe, and gets you talking to lots of different people, and then asking the fellow volunteers or organizers, who should I talk to here? And that's a great way to get yourself, like I said, starting the conversation, I feel is not as hard as ending the conversation. So that's where you can ask like, hey, can you introduce me to someone? And ideally you would also be the introducer. One thing that I found is it's so much easier to remember people's names when you've said them several times, like, oh, Bobby, have you met Zach? Zach, and then you can like let them talk and leave, and you've said their names out loud, and so you're more likely to remember their names later. So those are my tricks as far as in-person events. Meetups, you will be able to see usually an attendee list. And so that'll give you a chance to like do a little bit of light snooping on the other people who will be there. And like, oh, this person works at this company where I'd love to work. I'm gonna be looking for that person. Oh, they've got an updated profile picture, good. I'm gonna be looking for this person. So I'm not there to meet everyone. I'm there to meet like just a handful of people that I'd love to talk to. And they might not show up, they might be talking to someone else the whole time, but at least you like have some goal of like, here are 3 people that I'd love to meet at this event. Again, talk to people about what you're hoping to get out of the event. If it's a talk, like, oh, I was really looking forward to learning about PyTest and testing in general, showing that excitement and enthusiasm. And then if you tell them, I was really hoping to meet some hiring managers, then they can maybe help you. Like, okay, there's not any hiring managers here, but this person would be great for you to talk to. Let me introduce you. So some upcoming events on May 18th, there's the She Codes OKC group that is for women and non-binary people. I was gonna say developers, but you don't think of yourself as a developer yet, which I hope you do. Y'all are invited to that. And then the 24th, OKC Web Devs is going to be at Clever. So if you can make it to those, that would be ideal. One is a Saturday afternoon, and one is a Friday afternoon, so that might not work for everyone. I run a group called OKC Coffee and Code, and I tell people all the time, we can have meetups whenever y'all want. I just need you to say, when do you want to do it? And most people do not do that. So the one that's the OKC Web Devs on the 24th is in conjunction with OKC Coffee and Code. And you may look at it and think, oh, Friday afternoon, I work late, I can't make it to that. But I could do a Sunday afternoon on this side of town. Okay, say so, and we can make that happen. One of the questions I got was how to keep an active network after you've landed the job, which might not apply to y'all for a little bit. But I don't know I have a whole lot to add as far as that, other than you're just going to keep doing the things you are doing. Once you've built up some DMs in Slack, you can go back and scroll back. Okay, this person, I feel like I had a good, rapport with this person. I'm going to touch base and just see how they're doing, let them know what I'm up to, and kind of keep those conversations going. You're responding to Slack posts, you're responding to LinkedIn posts. Any chance you have to give a talk. So whenever you are organizing a group, one of the hardest things is finding speakers because it seems so daunting to give a talk, especially when you're new. But that's the time when people are going to be so forgiving of you. And then again, you're going to have that excitement of like, look at this thing I just made and learned. And like, you're going to think, oh, everyone's going to think this is so, beginner level, but they love to see your excitement. So you're going to be ready to give your first talk before, like way before you think you are. So if you see that opportunity, that's a way to show, again, your excitement. And then, when someone is going to talk that's interesting to you, ideally you'd again thank them even if it wasn't the best talk ever, follow up with them. And then ideally when you give a talk, people do that to you. And so you'll be able to follow up with them. I can go into more detail about any part of this. I think I've hit the main things that I really wanted to share, some of my pet peeves and big pieces of advice. Is there any part of that you'd like me to go into more depth on, or do you have some questions? Yeah.
Would you highlight things like these classes that we're doing, OK coders on your LinkedIn profile? So
I personally would not go over the top highlighting a boot camp because you want to seem like a developer, not a student. So the projects you've done in the boot camp, yes, really highlight those. The boot camp itself, honestly, like you can still mention it, but I don't want to say downplay, but in relationship to the project. So the piece of paper you get at the end of OK Coders will be meaningful to you and you can put it on your wall or whatever. It's not super meaningful to employers. What is meaningful is the things you learn and the things you made. So I know that y'all are working on a coffee shop app. Keep in mind that everyone else in the class is also making a coffee shop app. If you could find some way to make something that's unique to you, your interests, like maybe you're really into cats. So you're gonna make something that uses those same skills, almost a copy and paste, but it's about like your special interests. Your project is a thing to really highlight the work you've done as opposed to the class you're in.
well, at skill, to know wherever you have your experience, where have you used your skill, utilize those skills. So if I'm not putting OK coders
Right.
as an experience.
And I see people do that. I see them put their boot camp as experience. I don't have a strong thought on that. It seems a little to me like, okay, that's not really experience, but on the other hand, sure it is. Like your projects are your experience. You may want to talk to some recruiters because they have the best relationships with lots of different hiring managers that would know what specific hiring managers would like to see. I have my thoughts and preferences, but I'm just one person. I personally would much rather see in your featured section your project, a link to your live site, and really post in your activity. I made this progress on my website this week. Check it out. I feel like that goes much further than I know on LinkedIn you can post your projects, but it posts at the very bottom. And if you haven't really caught someone's attention, they're never going to scroll that far and see them. So you may post as experience, you might post it as projects, but I feel like that featured gets people's attention because it's so much further up. And then also mention it in your about section. Like lately I've been working on this project.
It's featured.
You have to go add it as a section. I think that's why so many people don't have it. I would have to look at my LinkedIn to remember how to get there. I think that might be it. While she's looking at that, what other questions do we have?
Find the events.
How do you find events? So in Techlahoma Slack channel, there's an events channel. There's also an OKC Metro channel. And I really find Meetup to be a good place to find things that are happening. Again, with the Coffee and Code group, we can make the event what works for you. And so that would be your way to show in the OKC Metro channel that you're excited about getting together with developers. It's like, hey, I've got this time free. I'm in this side of town who wants to meet up. And like Bobby was saying, just go into a coffee shop or brewery with somebody. Even if there's a couple of people, that's a great way to network with someone.
And you'll see more events start to pick up. Like Clever likes to host a lot of events. They've been really busy here lately. But they'll usually post like a web devs event there once.
Yeah.
So
Web Devs has been meeting at Clever every other month and then for social alternating. But Aaron just had they just had a baby.
Yeah.
So yeah, Clever has a lot going on for sure. But that's another way, especially the meetups that are at a company. It's okay, that's literally your foot in the door to this company is going to the event they have. I know the AmShot has one quarterly. It's like an art type event. being active, engaged, and also just asking, hey, what's going on in the OKC Metro channel? Finding also through Meetup. More questions for me. I can talk about this all day. Or I can let y'all go. Cause I don't see, I mean, I don't wanna like, I don't see y'all doing this. Maybe you are and it's just not visible, but I'm not seeing the Slack posts, the Meetup attendance that I think really would be beneficial for you. If you're wanting to, you know, change careers. And if you're not, honestly, I feel like doing these things is good to, you just never know what kind of opportunities may come up because of this relationship that you have with someone. It might be opportunity to speak or to do some sort of like teaching a class, or who knows what can happen if you meet these people and have these connections with people. Shauna, were you able to find the how to create the feature?
Add profile section.
Okay.
And then it's even nested there through recommend.
Oh, okay. They hide it.
Yeah.
Some people put their resume there. It depends, like, if you do put your resume there, check how it displays, because sometimes it's impossible to read, and I think it'd be better to put your resume somewhere else. I've seen some resumes that look okay there because they don't make it easy to like zoom in. So it just kind of is what it is. And so definitely once you posted something there, go back and look that it looks the way you would like it to. What other questions you'll have about Slack, GitHub, LinkedIn, going to events, introducing yourself to people?
Like try and do more work that isn't like open source things.
Yes.
Yes. Finding.
Yeah, so I mean, you did that one for the 200OK website. I feel like especially at the level y'all are at right now, maybe contributing like to React itself is not your goal for right now, but like contributing to the 200OK website is a perfect way to do that. Thunder Plains will have a website. And so I think asking, especially it's that volunteering aspect of like, also volunteering early helps you, like, you can choose which of the things to work on. And so I think you were able to get some things that were at the right level for you. And so you now have those pull requests on your GitHub. You have connected with people, and when they see your name, like, oh yeah, that was the guy who did that thing. And so I feel like contributing to local repo, like local events will have websites, local things. And so again, posting in Slack and being aware of what people are working on too. And it's totally fine to contribute to other people. I think some people feel like when you're new, the thing you make must be 100% created by you. I think people are going to have different opinions. I personally would rather see that you have contributed and accepted contributions from people. So, because I think that one thing that happens is you finish the boot camp and you really have no, like, and maybe y'all are doing this more than I realize, but like team experience and managing pull requests with each other and handling merge conflicts for the first time. And so I think that if you said, oh, hey, I'm working on this thing, and someone else is also, you can contribute to each other's projects, and that would give you that experience. I have one on mine called Get-Resources that I created just to give people the experience of creating their first pull request. So if you've not created a pull request, go there right now, github.com/KA Collins/get-resources, or ask me for the link. And that'll get you your first pull request if you don't have one yet. Or if you have and you're just not super comfortable creating them. So I think that it's less finding, oh, this big project and I'm going to create this big feature. If that happens, that's great. That might not be the right thing for you to be looking for right now. So the small things on the local repos for either people or events that you can contribute to. So you all have connected with me on LinkedIn and GitHub. I connect with, or I think on there they call it following. I follow everybody. I don't know how important that is. It doesn't hurt to do it. And then on my homepage, I can see like, oh, Jason connected with whoever. Like I saw that today. So I think it's not a bad thing to do, because then you'll show up the stuff you're doing. Like not every little thing, but when you connect with someone or when you create a repo, I'll see that on my feed now because connected. Then finding something to post about in the JavaScript Slack channel or the Jobs Talk Slack channel, something that will get a little bit of conversation going. So we're not trying to like stump people or ask a hard question. Ask something that's easy for people to answer, because people do want to feel like they're helpful to you. They want to feel knowledgeable. So give them like that opportunity to be that person for you. And ask like not super easy questions, but like those opinion questions seems to get engagement a lot of the time.
What's the name of that repository?
Get dash resources. I think you're in the right place. Go up to my repositories. And it'll be one of those. Okay. So I have a contributing steps. And you'll just follow those. So you're in the README and you see the contributing up there. That'll give you steps if you've never done this before. Follow the steps and you'll have your first pull request. Okay, what other questions can I answer? Or thoughts that y'all want to share? I hope to see y'all at some events soon. Hope to see y'all posting in some Slack channels. Yeah, feel free to send me a link to your LinkedIn or your GitHub or whatever you want me to look at, and I can give you feedback. I also have a Calendly link out there that nobody takes me up on, but I'm serious. I'm offering you like 30 minutes of your time, of my time to chat with you. When you see that, like that's someone again offering. I've seen other developers post that, and I don't think they get a lot of takers. But when you see a Calendly, like that's someone offering you 30 minutes of like their valuable time to give you advice. You should take them up on that. Calendly. Like Calendly. It's been a while since I've seen that posted in Slack, but lots of times in someone's profile, which is another good thing to do that I don't know how important it is and how often people look at those, but in your Slack profile, you can add links to your GitHub, LinkedIn, calendar, scheduling. All right, I think we may be done. I'm not getting a lot more questions.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Give us. Got a bunch of actionable things to do.
Yes, you do.
So.